on my mic. I was thinking I didn't turn on my mic, but I did. All right. First, just want to say thank you. I appreciate wearing the name tag so I can learn your names. If you're here for the first time, I've just been here a couple of weeks, so just trying to get acquainted with everybody. And still open to, if you want to find, say, 6 people who want to get together, maybe we can get together for dinner at some point, Carla and me, and we can get to, have a nice conversation, learn about each other a little bit more at a dinner. Or if you just want to talk to me one-on-one, just leave a message here with the church, and we can set up an appointment. I usually have Mondays and Tuesdays off, but we can get together whenever we need to get together. So thank you. Just feel the energy in the room. Good morning. I'm going to have Duncan put up a slide of someone who you probably will recognize. Not that you may know him personally. Abraham Lincoln. I know a lot of people are talking about the challenges that we've had in our country. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln, of course, was elected president. But back then, the inauguration was the first week of March. They ended up moving it to January 20th after Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or during his term. During those months, between his election and March, 7 states withdrew from the Union. And 6 weeks after he started the job, the attack came on Fort Sumter, the Civil War began, or as some like to say, the war between the states. And Abraham Lincoln had a burden to carry. Obviously, to think about the stress and all of that, I mean, you're just starting as the president, and you're dealing with all of these challenges. This picture was taken in 1863, and I found out that he was 54 years old when that picture was taken. Now I know that I've met some people who've been out in the sun a lot their whole life without sunscreen, and their skin looks like leather, but I guess that just shows you the blessing we have of living in 2018 when we've got sunscreen. His staff, as they were writing, biographies and stuff about Lincoln after, of course, his assassination, talked about there were some days where the stress just seemed to be overwhelming, and you could, like say, it was just, you could see the burden he felt like he was carrying on his shoulders. But he would say to his staff, "I'm going to go up to the residence and pray for about a half an hour." And he'd do that, and when he came down, he said he looked like a new man, just revitalized, re-energized. And it's just a good reminder. The one staff member had said that they came up with a nickname for when he went upstairs for 30 minutes. They called, he's going to have a power surge. This morning I want to explore the unity approach to prayer. What I've come to realize is, as being in unity since, January 1987, is that prayer is the most powerful activity that a human being can do. Unity, of course, takes a little bit different approach to prayer. We do seem to focus on affirmative prayer, speaking in the presence what we want to see demonstrated. But I know the late Ed Rabel, who was one of the professors at Unity Seminary, said, well, if you look at the 4 Gospels, though, that Jesus taught 3 ways of praying. One is asking. You ask for what it is you want to see happen. The second is affirming. You're doing affirmative prayer. And the third one is giving thanks in advance. So he would say, don't get caught up in thinking like you just need to be affirmative. There's nothing wrong. And I know he mentioned how Martin Luther, of all people, when he found out his best friend was dying, just kind of spent like 9 hours just praying to God. And he said in this prayer was like, oh, God, don't let my friend die. And sure enough, his friend pulled through. So I'm going to start, we're going to look at an acronym, starting with the word prayer, and make each letter talk about an aspect of how unity approaches prayer. First is P is power. There is a creative energy at the foundation of the universe. a field of energy that can do anything. It's more powerful than anything. Whatever your challenge is, the energy of the universe can handle it. Is, of course, just illustrated by Abraham Lincoln. He revitalized himself in 30 minutes, just taking some time to go within. It can transform our experience from the unpleasant thing that we're experiencing now to something more pleasant. It can bring what a lot of people call miracles, but it's actually just a demonstration of spiritual law. We all have had the stories of there's just the amazing thing that happened to so-and-so, or the amazing healing. I know it in Indianapolis, when I served the congregation there, our board president became very ill and was in a coma, and they basically told us, that, we've done all we can do. And so we started prayer circles, and people come in and pray with him. And he came out of the coma and recovered. And it was interesting because he had actually been the head of the entire nursing department at that hospital. And like I said, he came down with this illness, and so everybody in the hospital was watching, just checking in to see how Kevin was doing. And when he pulled through, I know his family and the people in the hospital were like, these guys seem to know what they're doing. The next two letters, I'm going to pull them up together. R and A would be renunciation and affirmation. In Unity, we have what we call denials and affirmation. But we also have the 12 powers, renunciation and faith, and they line up. Renunciation is actually just that sense of denial, and then affirmation is that sense of faith, being willing to say yes and no. In fact, Jesus, in the Gospel of Matthew, 5th chapter, 37th verse, said, "Let all of your prayers be yes, yes, no, no." You want to figure out, what do you want to align yourself with? Now, we've all had the experience of even sometimes unconsciously creating something with our thoughts or our belief systems that turns out to be unpleasant in our life. What we can do is use the power of a denial prayer to dissolve that thing, or start to make it go away or transform into something new. And then we use an affirmation to speak what it is that's in line with our new belief system. So if you have something that surfaces where you recognize, wow, that attitude doesn't work for me anymore, or that belief system doesn't work for anymore, it's I, Bob Uhlar, now deny, dissolve, and release any thoughts, feelings, or fears that I'm going to come down with a cold. Okay, well, now you've set up a void, so what do you want to put in it? I, Bob Uhlar, now embrace the divine idea of perfect health. So you want to start erasing, and I know Myrtle Fillmore, said that you don't need to get intense about denials. It's just kind of like sweeping the cobweb, from the corner of the room. But it's just a matter of that declaration of like, yeah, I'm done playing the game this way. I'm going to try a new path. Now, the letter Y means yoke. Not egg yolks, but yoke as in having something on your shoulders. And of course, we've got a picture here of the oxen. Of course, you got the yoke that goes across them. And they got another picture here, about how people, around the world have used, yoke to carry heavy burdens or heavy, so what is your yoke? What's going on? What do you feel is on your shoulders right now? Back in biblical times, Jesus would talk about the yoke. In fact, let's see. I've got the bike. Here. Matthew 11th chapter. It says, "Come to me, all who labor and are carrying a heavy load, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am gentle and humble, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light." Many people back then were just subsistence farmers. They would farm, and then, of course, they'd have to give something to the landowner, and then they'd have to give something in taxation to the Roman Empire. So they were just barely making it. And there would be, as they would talk with each other, someone would say, well, what's your yoke like? And see if somebody else maybe is working for someone who puts less of a burden on them. And so what Jesus is saying, yeah, take off that yoke. Take off that challenge in your life and be willing to just give it to Spirit. So Jesus' yoke, like he says, is easy and my burden is light. Now, that brings us to the letter E. E in prayer stands for ease. Would it be okay if your life got a little easier? One of the important precursors to prayer is meditation, being willing to go within, and of course, we'll be meditating here in just a few minutes, but I had an interesting experience. I heard a psychologist doing a presentation as part of a class that I was in, and he brought up the subject of meditation, and how it works for some people, but he says, it would never work for me because I could never erase all of the thoughts from my mind. And I was like, aha. And I had a conversation afterwards with him, and I said, that's a common misperception. People feel like they just need to release all thoughts. But we are thinking beings. So to think that you're going to erase all thoughts is, I think, unrealistic. And I heard a Buddhist monk talk about what you need to do is just give your intellectual nature something to focus on. And he talked about, the monkey mind, the chattering monkey mind. And what he found is you need to give the monkey a task or feed the monkey. Give the monkey something to occupy himself. And so that's where you may have heard about the concept of a mantra, just focusing your thinking nature on just a word, like one, and just going there. And I know another Buddhist teacher would say, since you want to just make sure that you're continuing breathing normally, focus on the rings around your nostrils. Just focus on what that feels like and all of that. Keep your mind busy with that so that you can allow the thoughts to just kind of dissipate. And when a thought does come into our mind, you don't have to go with it. You can just kind of observe it going by. It's kind of like standing on a corner waiting for the bus. You know that you want to take the number 3 route, but a number 1 shows up. You don't kick the bus. You don't say, hey, this is the wrong bus. You just very calmly let it pass and wait for your bus. You can do that in meditation. And if you're starting out in meditating, it'd be a little challenging at first. But it's kind of like opening a bottle of 7-Up or Sprite. That's the most carbonated beverage. But if you let it sit there for 24 hours, the bubbles are gone. So don't get discouraged if, say, the first or second time you meditate, there's a lot of thoughts going through. That's part of it, what everybody goes through. But what you will find is it really enhances your connection, your conscious connection to Spirit. It's always there. And then Mother Teresa said, God is our friend in the silence. The trees, flowers, and grass grow in the silence. The stars, the moon, the sun, and how they move is in the silence. So yeah, it's a good reminder to us all. And then the last letter, of course, is R. Of course, we have an earlier R, but this one is for receive. Being willing to be open-minded and flexible about what the outcome can be. Sometimes we get too attached to, okay, this is what I see, this is what I want, when there might be something better that comes along. It's like a little girl who's learning about coins, how to, what's a penny, what's a nickel, what's a dime, that kind of thing. And she goes to her grandpa and says, Grandpa, I want a nickel. And Grandpa checks his pockets, doesn't have any change, so pulls a $5 bill out of his wallet, and so will that work? She says, no, I want a nickel. A lot of us get caught up in that. It's like we think we want a nickel, but there's something better coming along. Another story that kind of illustrates that is, back in the days before the internet and computers, you'd get mail order catalogs. And you'd order something on that and send off the order, but you never were sure whether it was in stock or not. And some of the mail order catalogs would have, on the order form, check this box if you'll to allow us to substitute something if we're out of stock of what you want. And so this woman checked the box. She decided she was going to order a dress. And about a week and a half later, she gets a package. It's a dress, but it's not the one that she ordered, but it's a lot nicer. And she went back to the catalog and looked. It was like 3 times the price of the one that she ordered. But they had run out. And so they sent her something nicer. And a lot of times, Spirit is like that. we get too caught up in, okay, this is what I want, when there's something better out there if we just let go of what has to be the outcome. So I end a lot of my prayers with this or something better, Lord, or this or something better, God. Now, let me just clarify, because, I grew up Catholic and learning that, I had to petition God with my prayers, and that's not what it's about. It's not about putting in a petition to God. It's about allowing prayer to change ourselves. Allowing, rather than thinking we need to pray to something outside of ourselves, recognizing that we're already part of that amazing creative energy of the universe. So that's why we can use denials and affirmations and allow our life to unfold. You can't, we have to sometimes drop the rock that we're carrying around so that someone can put a diamond in our hand. We need to make room in our life by recognizing what we don't need anymore and being willing to give it away. And that's spiritual, that's mental, and that's physical. If you're not using it, put it back into circulation. Allow the good things to come into your life. So, here's your takeaway, the acronym, prayer. The amazing power of the universe, you're a part of it, you can use it. Renunciation, being willing to dissolve what it is you don't want in your life anymore. Affirmation, using your faith to say yes to the things you want to align yourselves with. And then, of course, the yoke, are you willing to take off that burden off your shoulders? And then are you willing to let the ease come into your life, being willing to meditate and clear out the clutter in your mind, and then being willing to receive something good, something better than what you're experiencing now. The closing story that I'm going to use today is actually going to be a video story. So this is from Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News.